Hello there, and a happy new month to you all. Feels great to have you join me for another edition of WADR's Gender Program 50/50, broadcasting from West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, and also live on our partner stations in Liberia, the Gambia, and Sierra Leone. If you're listening to us anywhere around the world via WADR.org, thank you for connecting with us. My name is Nadidi Tete, and I am the host of the program. 50/50 is a platform dedicated to discussing gender equality and equity, promoting equal opportunities for all genders, fostering an inclusive and women-friendly environment, and examining social issues from diverse perspectives to address the unique impact on individuals of different genders. Today, let me serve notice that I would be doing less talking. My guests have all the information and I would leave them to do the talking. Today, we are having a conversation on the passage of Ghana's Affirmative Action Gender Equity Bill 2024. Well, in case you're wondering why the applause, here is a quick tip. The bill, which aims to promote the progressive increase and active participation of women in public and active life, has been in and out of Parliament since 2011. Now, do the math. Yep, it's taken 13 long years to have the bill passed. So today, we will take you on that journey on 50/50 and also hear from some women's groups and advocates on how they feel about the passage and what they think it will achieve.
It's been a long journey. In Ghana's history, there has been an affirmative action law, but it was short-lived. In 1960, when Ghana became a republic, under our very first president, they passed a law called the Representation of the People's Act, 1960, which brought in some women. I believe that there was a fear that they would not have people voting for women because of our cultural and religious background.
Your contributions are welcome via our WhatsApp number +221 7818 45421. Again, the number is +221 7818 45421. You can equally leave a comment on our various social media handles. On X and Instagram is at WADR News. On Facebook at West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Please remember to begin your message with the hashtag 50/50. Well, in case you're not following us just yet, kindly do so to ensure that you don't miss out on any of our discussions and exciting episodes. We also stream live on WADR.org. And for emphasis, I will repeat our handles. On X and Instagram, it's at WADR News. On Facebook, we are West Africa Democracy Radio English Service.
Stay tuned. Your gender program 50/50 will be right back. And we are back. This is 50/50.
You're welcome once again to 50/50 with me, Nadidi Tete. Now, envision a future where women hold an equal share of power in governance and public life. The recently passed Affirmative Action Gender Equity Bill 2024, currently awaiting presidential assent, aims to transform this vision into reality by ensuring that a significant number of women occupy key positions in government and decision-making arenas. Now, imagine a nation where decisions are shaped by diverse perspectives, reflecting the true potential of its people. But the journey to have the bill pass by Parliament has not been easy. I had a conversation with the convener of the Affirmative Action Coalition, lawyer Sheila Minka-Premo. Now, she has been in the thick of affairs when it comes to the formulation of this bill. The coalition was established to advocate for the enactment and passage of the Affirmative Action Bill. My first question to her focused on the arduous journey to having the bill now being passed by Parliament.
In Ghana's history, there has been an affirmative action law, but it was short-lived. In 1960, when Ghana became a republic, under our very first president, they passed a law called the Representation of the People's Act, 1960, which brought in some women. I believe that there was a fear that they would not have people voting for women because of our cultural and religious background. So they had special seats which brought in 10 women from all the 10 regions. When this happened, people saw women also in leadership and working. So in the 1965 election, that had the highest number of women in parliament at that time. They call it the National Assembly. It was 18.5%. But then there was a coup the following year, so not much had happened. A lot of research has been going on to identify whether or not the reality that women are marginalized in many, many areas. And so it was in 2011 that the then Ministry of Women and Children set up a committee that was mandated to try to come up with provisions or proposals for a law to address affirmative action. Before then, in the Constitutional Review Committee, one of the recommendations was that there was a need for an affirmative action law in line with the 1992 Constitution. But the white paper that came, not much really happened in relation to it. So this committee did a lot of consultations, did some secondary review, and put proposals together for the ministry. And I happened to be serving on that particular committee. So I was very privy to what went on. The very first drafts of the bill came out in 2013. There were consultations with it, a lot of updates, etc. Then it's 2016. That was the first time that the bill went to Parliament. But it went to Parliament in October 2016. And elections took place in December, so it didn't get a chance to be processed, and then it lapsed. Since then, there have been several attempts to have it updated, taken to Cabinet for approval, and laid. There's been a lot of up and down, a lot of changes to the bill, etc. And at a point, we didn't have anybody active at the ministry as a minister, because this bill is under the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. So when a new minister was sworn in December 2022, in 2023, one of the key things she took up was this bill, to work on it, update it. So we understand around about March, it was updated and went to Cabinet. So there was also a lot of back and forth, etc. Then, somewhere along the line, there was a change in the minister. And the new minister also took this up as a very key document, which was very necessary for this country. So in October 2020, I understand that in September of 2023, Cabinet gave approval finally, and then in October 2023, it was laid in Parliament. Originally, it was laid under a certificate of urgency, and usually, when a bill is laid under a certificate of urgency, it progresses very fast, and there's very little room for intervention from outside. But the committee that it was referred to, which is the Committee for Gender and Children, thought that they needed input from outside, so they recommended that it should go through the normal processes. So they invited stakeholders to bring inputs. The coalition sent a memo with a few comments on the bill. A few of us also sent inputs. In February this year, there was a consultation. Normally, the committee, based on the number of memos they've received, when they are doing their hearings on the bill, they will invite the stakeholders to come and speak to the various comments they have made. So they invited us for 2 days in February. We were with them. We went through from the beginning to the end. Lots of comments were made. So they realized that because there were quite a number of errors in the bill, it would be better to take it to the Senate. Usually, they would just prepare their report and send the bill back for the second reading, and then it has to go to the floor. A lot of work will have to be done. But they decided that it would be easier and it would be quicker if the bill is sent back to the Attorney General's office based on the comments that were made and agreed upon, for the AG's office to update it. So the Attorney General's office updated it with the corrections, etc. And they took it back to Parliament, and then it was relayed again for the first reading, I think on the 7th of June. And because they had already heard from stakeholders, they just wrote their reports, with the changes that have been made, etc. And then I think on the 21st of June, it went for the second reading. And normally after the second reading, the minister responds, they will discuss the policy implications of the bill. If it's okay, then they move it to the next level, which is the consideration stage. So the consideration stage, that's where the whole House would debate each clause, make all changes, they'll approve it, before, and usually there's a lot of debate around it. So the new minister, who was very keen on seeing this bill through, decided to do what they call winnowing. Winnowing is you get a few people from both sides of the House, you sit down with them with some experts, and then you look at the various clauses, and they know what their sides felt about a particular clause. And then we would debate it and then agree that, look, let's take this sort of common position. So the bill would go. That way, if you do win or win, when the bill goes for consideration, it goes faster. Because otherwise, they can take one clause and a consideration and use the whole day or time allocated to the bill to discuss one. So we did that. The coalition, we joined the team to do the winnowing with them. It went very well, went through all the clauses. And the minister also managed to get, the business committee is the one that sets the agenda for Parliament. She managed to push to get it put on the agenda because Parliament was rising. So there were long sittings. Some of our people had to be in Parliament sometimes till 11 p.m. Or going through this bill, doing the consideration. And then it was by God's grace, they managed to finish everything.
We'll hear more from lawyer Sheila Minka Premo, who is a convener of the Affirmative Action Coalition, in a bit. But let's hear from some women's rights groups as well on what they make of the passage of the bill. First will be the former vice chairman of the Convention People's Party, Rodalyn Imoro Ayana. And now, despite welcoming the passage of the bill, the current version, she believes the current version is a watered down edition from the original proposed bill.
With gender parity that everybody's fighting for and whatnot, I felt that it was going to help us, the women. Because at the end of the day, women are not that many in decision making. And the leadership of this country is a political one. So we would expect that at least we'll be able to get more women into positions of authority and positions that can make them contribute their quota towards the development of this country. I'm a bit saddened by the fact that it had been watered down. The original document has been watered down, and some amendments have been made and stuff. And I wish that those amendments had come back to us for us to discuss and agree. Because what's the essence of a document that has been watered down and that has been amended, and the whole thing, that the expectations of the majority of women it has not been catered for, so to speak. And I felt that they should have come back to us again, women of this country, for us to understand why they did what they did.
Right.
But in the absence of that, it's a good move. We've done well. We've come far enough to at least get it passed as a bill in Parliament. I'm hoping that we'll be able, on the political side, we'll be able to work with it, because whatever happens, we need to be able to get to 2030 with the right representation.
For the Vice President of the African Women in Leadership Organization and life coach Sika Chum, instead of just centering on equity, as seen in the bill's name, Affirmative Action Gender Equity Bill 2024, we could have both equity and equality to cater for all the various circumstances that we are confronted with.
For starters, it's a good thing that it's been passed. That excited me. The fact that there's going to be a deliberate attempt to equip women to take on managerial positions. I see women taking it's my prayer that women will take advantage of that. I know there was the mention of equality and equity. In fact, I see it being used interchangeably. And the question I'm asking is, could it be merged? Does it have to be equality only? Does it have to be equity only? Couldn't it be equality and equity, depending on what we are looking at? Well, because equality means a different thing and equity means a different thing. Okay, so if we say equality, the truth is it's not every single thing that it could be equal. It's not every single thing. When we say equity, which means we leave room for looking at individual differences. So I'm asking, this is just for us to consider whether it could be a combination of both equality and equity. Another thing that came to my mind was the use of language and how that could threaten people. And I'm talking about men. The moment we use the word "the fight," then it's like we are fighting with somebody. If we say the conversation, an invitation to converse, I'm also looking at how we are going to present this so that people know that it's not a fight. Okay, we are not fighting with men. We are looking at issues in society that we need to look at and disrupt and change and create shifts that would enable us to thrive.
We'll go for a break at this point. We will be right back with more after this.
You are listening to WADR's gender program 50/50. The program is live on 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, alternative youth radio in Lofa County, Liberia, and around the world on WADR.org.
Now, earlier we heard from lawyer Sheila Minka Premo, convener of the Affirmative Action Coalition. Now, in the second part of my conversation with her, I asked her about when the coalition expects the president to assent to the bill to become law. I also, among others, asked her about whether the passage of the bill couldn't have happened earlier, bearing in mind a promise made by the president in his first term in office.
We think that's going to be very soon. This particular bill emanated from the executive. The ministers, etc., are all under the executive arm of government. So this is their bill. It has received cabinet approval and now it's gone through parliament. And so we don't anticipate that there's going to be any problem or any delay in its passage, in the president assenting to it. We believe strongly that in the next few, I think under their standing orders, the president has a certain number. Once they have to make it ready. I know that we're updating it with a lot of corrections and final things to it. Once they finish it and it's late, the president has a certain number of days within which, and then the process continues. So we believe that in a few weeks.
Bearing in mind that the president, in the early stages of his tenure, he mentioned that he was going to ensure that the Affirmative Action Bill was passed in his first year in office. I mean, it's happened eventually, but does the coalition feel that this could have come earlier?
Oh, definitely. We feel that this could have been done earlier, and they would have had the opportunity to get it working for a while. But as the saying goes, better late than never. I think that what I know is that as part of the member of the technical committee, anytime it goes to cabinet, they would also review it from a certain perspective, say this should be taken out. This is in the early drafts of it. I think as of 2017, when there was the new government came in, that version of the bill had an institution like the chieftaincy institution in it. So I remember the minister in 2017, in April 2017, there was a workshop to review the 2016 bill, which had gone to parliament, which didn't get passed, and comments were made, and then it was sent to cabinet. So the feedback he gave was that under the Constitution and in the Chieftaincy Act, everything to do with chieftaincy, it has to go to the National House of Chiefs for them to approve it first. So the advice was that the provisions to do with gender equality within the chieftaincy institution should be taken out. Okay, and a few other things where I think at a point they said the bill was too long. So in 2018, some of us who were helping with the technical committee work were also put into a place for about 5 days to try to reduce the size of the bill, make it more succinct. So a lot of work. Every time we went to cabinet, something came back to try to help to improve the bill a little more. So yes, we would have been happier if it had become law earlier, so that we had a longer time to work on it before 2030, which is the Sustainable Development Goal time for where we will see parity. But it didn't happen. And as you know, in the provisions of the bill, the targets, you don't just go to 50%. It's not possible. So we start with 30% first in the first 2 years, another 40% in the next 2 years. And then the idea is that if it is possible, we can reach parity by the year 2030 in line with the SDG Goal 5.
And in terms of the timelines, I'm looking at the bill again. We are in 2024. We just passed the 7th month. And so how realistic is it for us to meet the 30% target in 2024?
Because the bill is not only about parliament, but it's about the arms, like all the three arms of government, public service, private sector. There's room, within this next 2 years to put structures in place to get things implemented. Yes, it's going to be a challenge with Parliament because, first of all, the parties have already done their primaries, okay? So it's going to be more difficult in terms of getting the numbers we're hoping to see. In terms of the law applying even to them now, it's going to be very difficult. But for us, because and the part dealing with politics is only one out of the 34 sections of the law. Only section 22 deals with political parties. The rest deals with all the other sectors, okay? So we are going to move there, looking at all the other sectors, seeing what strategies can be put in place. There are some strategies at the back of the bill, in some of the schedules, some of the things that should be done by the various bodies, etc. For the political party one, we will have to wait possibly in the next couple of years to see how things happen. If we are also able to get constitutional amendments to make room for maybe some special seats where only women can compete against themselves so that we can get more women in parliament, or a quota is put in the constitution, then we can always come back to the law to amend. Okay, no law is cast into stone. Yes, so yes, there'll be a challenge in compliance as far as political parties and as far as what we want to see in parliament is concerned. But they are also supposed to be looking at their documents. So their all their documentation, their manifestos, their whatever it is. We would like to see that these things are reflected, so that when they come, whoever comes into power, they will have to make sure that they start complying with, minimum targets for the ministers they appoint, etc., etc. Yeah. But in terms of the election itself, in some of the strategies, save seats, the parties should try and see whether they can put women in some of the states. But it's going to be difficult to enforce those things at this particular election. But we are hoping that once other sectors start working, invariably, things will also begin to happen as far as political party representation is concerned. And I'm sure we'll be seeing a change. So, as I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. We are still going to work. We know there have been a few constitutional review proposals that are out there. We're going to push to make sure that we have one as well. And we're also going to continue with advocacy and do some more work, yes.
And what would you say are the key highlights of the bill?
So the bill mentions the different sectors where there needs to be gender balance. Article 17.4, which the bill is primarily based on, it indicates that there should be gender balance. So within the public sector as well as in the private sector. So it mentions, the three arms of government: the legislature, the judiciary, the executive. It mentions the various public services. It even mentions the issues of council of states, etc. Then it mentions the private sector, etc. So they are all supposed to work to meet the targets. And there's a body in there known as a gender equality. Well, initially it was called gender equality, but it was changed to gender equity. The whole bill, when it went through Parliament, the name has changed a bit. What went to Parliament was Gender Affirmative Action Gender Equality Bill 2023. At the end, by the time they finished work on it, they changed the word equality to equity. So it's Affirmative Action Gender Equity Act. That's what you're going to get. So there's a body known as the Gender Equity Committee. So there were a lot of consequential changes based on that. And so this body is the one that will be responsible for tracking and monitoring compliance with the law, to be based at the Ministry of Gender. We are hoping that they'll really make provision to have this body really well set up and doing this work and doing it well. And I think that there's some kind of a fear for some countries where they would say that in pushing for a law of this nature now, women outnumber men in parliament in some places. The way our law is structured, because it talks about the law coming up with policies and programs, and there's going to be, yearly measurement to see where we are. Once we reach parity, that particular program will stop. So in Ghana, we will not get a situation where one gender, they call it reverse discrimination. No, our law is very special. So it works this equity journey. Once it reaches parity, then it stops. Do you get it? So we think that it was okay for us to settle on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we bring our conversation to an end. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, having you come along with me. Remember to follow our discussions on X and Instagram at WADR News. On Facebook is West Africa Democracy Radio English Service, and online at WADR.org. Now, leave me a message by our WhatsApp number +221 7818 45421. Again, the number is +221 7818 45421. I am Nadidi Tete. See you next week. Once again, Happy New Month.
We thank you for listening to this program in Liberia on Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County, Kwakete Radio 100.9 FM, Baga, Voice of Liberia FM 104.1 Monrovia, DCN Radio 91.3 FM Riverses. In Sierra Leone, we thank our listeners on Radio Bath 91.3 FM. In the Gambia on New Me FM 94.0 North Bank region.